Hey guys, welcome back. In this video we'll be talking about functions with multiple inputs. In the last video we talked about functions with single input. We talked about function with inputs generally, but we used single input in our functions. So in this video we'll be looking at functions that takes in multiple inputs. Just like we have in our single input, whenever you are defining your function, you pass in the place so that the variable for your input to the function, pass in the name of your parameter. So whenever you want to define functions with multiple inputs, how do you do that? I guess you guessed right. So to pass in multiple inputs, you're just going to separate this with comma and then you pass in your second or the number of inputs you want to pass. Maybe you want to pass, let's say 3 or 4 inputs. So you have your inputs 2, and you have your inputs 3, you have your input 4, and then it goes on and on like that. So to pass in multiple inputs in your function, you just separate your input with comma and then you define your inputs, you define your parameters. You can have this as an example. Possibly want to say hello to John and then we also need our location. So we can have an example. Possibly want to have the location of the person we are saying hello to in our function. We can ask for their location as the second input. So we can say location, right? So we can say hello, then the name of the person, followed by the message, and then we can then ask from our user how is his location today. We can print how is curly braces. Okay, this is supposed to be f string, that is not just ordinary string. So we say how is this today? That's a question, right? We are going to have f here to turn that into an f string. All right, so we can print this. So to invoke our welcome function, so we pass in the name of our user and then the location. Possibly we want the location to be, we can use Los Angeles. Okay, possibly Jane is from Los Angeles. All right, so if we run this now, okay, so we have hello Jane, welcome to the Python programming for beginners series. How is Los Angeles today? So you can see now, to work with functions that takes in multiple inputs, you separate your inputs using comma and then you write out the name of your parameters. So whenever you want to call your functions, you pass in the arguments just in the same order as you define the inputs. During our definition, we have name as the first parameter and then followed by the location. So whenever you want to call your function, you will pass in name as the first argument and then followed by the location. So you pass in your arguments in the same order as parameters. If you, by chance, if you switch the order of your arguments, so you are going to see the output is not going to make sense. If you run this now, you are going to have hello Los Angeles, welcome to this, how is Jane today? You can see that you really need to follow the order of your parameters whenever you are filling in your arguments. And that is going to lead us into positional and keyword arguments. Actually, you are not entirely restricted to passing in your argument in the same order as your parameter. So by default, functions are called with respect to positional argument. Positional argument in such a way that pass in your argument in the same order as your parameter. That is the default behavior of functions. Functions takes positional argument as the default, but there is another way that you can do it in such a way that you use keyword to stipulate which of the arguments you are passing in. I hope I'm not confusing you with argument and parameters. Parameters are this, parameters are the placeholders when you are defining your function, whereas argument are the actual value you are passing in. By default, functions takes in positional arguments. So by default, it passes your argument in the same order as your parameter. So if you have name as the first parameter, then it assigns the first argument to name. If you have location as the second parameter, then it assigns the second argument as the second parameter. That is the default behavior of positional argument. I think maybe I should just write it out. You have positional arguments. So that is the default behavior of functions. And after positional, we have keyword arguments. Alright. So to use keyword argument, possibly you don't want to pass in your you don't want to pass in your argument in the same order as the parameter, what you do to use keyword argument is to you specify the name of which of the parameters you want to pass in. So now we have Los Angeles as the first argument here. So you don't want Python to misplace Los Angeles for name. So what you do is you write the keyword that is the name of the parameter. We are going to say location. Location is equal to Los Angeles, and then you have name to be equal to Jane. Right, so this is keyword argument. You are telling Python that this argument is for the parameter location, whereas Jane is for the parameter of name. So with this now, you can pass in your argument in whatever order you like. Python is going to assign them correctly since you have specified their keyword. So if we run this now, you can see our output in the previous function invocation. You see hello Los Angeles, which is actually not correct because due to us specifying the keyword now. So if we run this, we are going to have it in the correct order. So you see that we have hello Jane, welcome to this, and then how is Los Angeles today. So that is about positional argument and keyword argument. Positional argument is the default behavior in such a way that the arguments they are assigned in the same order as the parameter, whereas you have the option of using keyword argument. So whichever one you use in invoking your functions is entirely dependent on you. If you prefer keyword argument, fine and good, just that you have to write extra syntax. If you prefer position argument, fine and good, just that you have to keep in mind the ordering of your parameters, right? So that's that for this video. I'll see you in the next one.